Welcome back to another lesson. We are going to learn how to make a Makefile to improve the compilation workflow or build process. As we have right now, if I want to compile my program, my game, for my case, I'm using the compiler, the G++ from the GNU compiler collection, GCC. And every time I want to do it via the command line, I have to specify every CPP file that I have, and I have also to link to the SDL2 library with the -L option. And that process will generate a file called a.out that I can execute via the command line, so I can power up the game here. Now imagine in a production scenario, right, where you have an actual real world game that's pretty big. There are going to be lots of files, and it's going to be really painful to type all the list of the files every time you want to compile it. Of course, today much of this process is already automated via GUI IDEs and the such. But since we are keeping it simple and I am building everything from the command line, I'm gonna stick to a command line tool called make. And we're going to have a file called Makefile. So the Makefile will contain a set of instructions to tell. So it instructs. You give it a set of rules that will be used to build the program, and pretty much is like this. So if you want to generate the executable for your program, you need this object file and you need that other object file and so on. In our case, we can see here, if I go to the left hand sidebar here of my text editor, I have these files of the extension .o. These are object files that are generated, right, when I compile each of these individual CPP files. And for example, we have the game object, game.o, and we have the main object, main.o. So in order for us to build the game, we are going to need game.o and we're going to need main.o. Now each of those files, they need instructions as to how to build them, right? And for example, for game.o, we need to compile it with G++. So we are going to give a command in order to generate the file game.o. And the same goes for main.o. And these two files are a requirement or a prerequisite to the overall target here, that is the game program itself, the program executable. And that program executable requires the building of game.o and the main.o, the prerequisites. Okay? So keep that in mind, those words that I said. They were intentional. No? All these keywords, targets, we have prerequisites of dependencies, and we have the commands in order to build those files. Okay, with that, let's create a file. I'm going to call it the make file. Okay, I put the first letter capitalized. So the make file. So what I want to do is improve my compilation and make this kind of automatic. So whenever I want to compile, all I have to say is, instead of typing G++ main.cpp, game.cpp-l, sdl2, and so on, I just need to type make, and it automatically look at the Makefile and build the program for us. It also helps when you change a specific file, and it will detect that you only changed that specific file, therefore you only need to rebuild that one specific file instead of rebuilding the whole thing over again from scratch. So that saves a lot of time. So the executable name is a.out. This is just a generic because I did not specify. So we want to give it, our game a name. Maybe I want to call it labyrinth. So let's call labyrinth. Did I spell that right? Okay, so this is the target. So the target is the whole game itself. And this target, I'm gonna put a colon here, and I'm gonna put a space. And this requires what? Main.cpp, game.cpp, and a link into SDL2. Well, to make the labyrinth, we need the compiled object files, and these will be the main.o and game.o. Okay, these are the requirements to build a labyrinth. Now, if we already have those requirements, which we will define how to make them later, we can go ahead and compile everything. Okay? So we are going to say G++. Now I have to give the object files. The way I did it before, let me kill this, was by just passing CPP, but now I just want to pass the object files. So I'm going to look at the manual page for the G++ command. I'm going to say man space G++. There's an option that we can use. So it takes the it will take the object file. Okay, so let me see. -C option says not to run the linker. We're gonna need this for when we're gonna create the object files. That's one thing. Let's see. Okay, so we don't need an option. I don't think we need an option for that. Just the C is gonna be used later. But we did see the -O for how to make that specific file. So -O is the output. Let me go back to the beginning. You have the option -O for output. That's what we want to rename a.out to actually labyrinth. So I'm gonna say -O labyrinth. And I'm gonna put main.o, game.o, like that. Okay, so this is going to generate the executable called labyrinth because of -O option output. And then it's going to take, in order to generate the executable, you need the main.o and game.o. Now we also need the linker, so don't forget at the end, -L SDL2. Now, in order for us to generate main.o and game.o, we need to define a new target here, like a dependent target. I'm going to call it main.o : and we are going to specify whether it needs anything. What's the requirement for us to have main.o? Well, we need some file to exist, and this file is the main.cpp file. So the requirement here is the prerequisite that the file main.cpp exists. Now the command to generate main.o will be g++. Now we're going to use the -c so we do not link anything, we just generate the main.o file, and that will be main.cpp, like that. Now just do the same thing for game.o. In order to generate this target, you need to have the file game.cpp. It needs to exist, and to build game.o, the command is g++-c, so you don't link, you just generate the object file, and it's going to be, game.cpp. Now that we have this Makefile, let's try it out. I'm going to quit with Q from the man page, and I'm going to say make. And you can see it executed first g++ main cpp g++-o and so on. And notice it didn't show this one, and I think it's because it's already generated and it detected that it was already there. But you can see there's a labyrinth executable here that I can see. It executes the program. Okay, so you can see the compilation process leaves these residual files, right? The game.o, main.o, and so on. So it's kind of a mess here, having these files together with the actual source code. So that's not a good thing. So we have to clean that up. And a good way to approach this is to create a new directory just for those build files. You can call it build directory or the distribution directory dist, whatever you want. Okay, so I'm going to create this directory called build. So I'm going to place all the .o files there, and maybe I also want to generate labyrinth there so it doesn't mix with the source code. Another common practice is to create a dedicated directory for the source code called src. You can also do that, but I'll leave that to you to do on your own. Okay, now to be able to make the build, I obviously could just create the directory and move the files manually myself, but every time I run make, it's gonna do the same thing again and I have to manually move them. So what I'm gonna do is I am going to go here in the Makefile and change it so it generates the targets in the build directory. Okay, so let's think about that. First thing, in order to generate this thing called labyrinth, this target needs, I'm gonna say please generate it at build/labyrinth. And also you want to take the main.o from build/main.o and build/game.o. And that's one way, but then it's going to go to the requirement here, and the requirement it's going to create in the same directory. Maybe I can use, let me think about this. Maybe I can use the -o option here and say build/main.o. It's kind of redundant though. I'm typing, maybe there's a better way, and I think there is. And this other one will be game.o. Let me remove these object files here that I have. I'm gonna say rm*.o. And they're gone now from my current directory. I'm also gonna remove a.out. rma.out. Also gonna remove labyrinth. And let's see what happens. I think we also need a build step to create the directory, so it's not gonna be okay. You can see there's an error. Assembler messages. build/main.o. No such file or directory. So we tried to build that. Okay. So we also need to create the build directory here. Let me think about this. Depends on main, depends on game, it depends on. So let's make it depend on the build. And I'm gonna define the build target to be no prerequisites for build, but we have to make a directory. I'm gonna use mkdir build like that. And I'm gonna say make again. Let's see what we have now. It ran g++-c main.cpp-o build/main.o and the other ones. Let's see what's in the build directory. We have game.o, main.o, and labyrinth. Let's say .build/labyrinth. And we see the game actually executes. So that worked. Okay, I am just curious. I think if we put the target, what happens if we do build/main.o, and here I remove. Never mind. You can try it on your own if you want to do it another way. Maybe there are always optimizations we can make to the Makefile, make variables and so on. Because as the project scales, you're gonna have more and more files, so you don't want to repeat yourself every single time. So you have to make targets, and it's pretty much the same kind of pattern. So there are ways you can optimize the Makefile with, so you don't repeat yourself as much. But I'll leave that to you if you want to do your own research and learn more about that. Okay, so this is looking good. Let's see. Something is not right here. I see what's going on. You see, every time I run make, it's rebuilding everything, but that should not be the case. Why? Because I already built everything. So it's not detecting that I rebuilt everything, and actually we are going to have to refactor this. Never mind what some of the stuff I said before. And the reason it's not detecting that I already built it's probably because my target is specifying like that instead of having the build/. So if I put build/ here, main.o, and I put build/game.o, and here labyrinth is that build/main.o, build/game.o, what would happen? Oops. So it didn't execute the other ones. I want to remove the directory build. Let me see, rm-r. I removed the directory build, and I want to see when I run make again, it made the build directory and so on. And if I run make again now, it detected that I already built main.o, game.o, but it did not detect labyrinth. And it's probably because I need the build/labyrinth here. There you go. So now it detected that I already had built labyrinth. The executable itself, it says make build/labyrinth is up to date. So that fixed that problem of detecting whether you had already compiled everything. So it will save you a lot of time not having to redo the thing that's already built. So say I change game.cpp, for example, I add some comment here and I save and I do make, it detected that game was changed and it rebuilt game.o and then rebuilt the labyrinth. Note it did not have to rebuild main.o because it didn't change. Game.cpp was the file that changed. So that's nice. Let me revert this. Let's have an overview of what we did in this lesson. We learned to make a makefile so that we can use the make command to conveniently compile the project and recompile it whenever there are changes in the source code. It will automatically detect changes and recompile the specific files accordingly. That helps you save time instead of recompiling everything over again from scratch. It just takes the files that changed and compiles those and then compiles the executable again. To use the makefile, you have to define targets that require dependencies or prerequisites. The target is at the left hand side of the colon. The prerequisites are at the right hand side of the colon. Now, under that entry, you have to specify a command or a set of commands that will generate that target. You have to press tab and then type the command under the entry with the colon. Okay, like we did here. Make sure you use like that. This thing should be a tab, not a space. I don't think the space will work. So make sure to use a tab. And here we define build/labyrinth, this target, because we want to separate the object files and executable into its own build directory to not clutter the source code directory. So we have the target on the left hand side. This is the main one that will generate the executable for the game. And we have the prerequisites. The executable depends on the build directory existing. And in order to have the build directory, you have to make mkdir build here. It will automatically detect whether it already exists or not. Then we have the main.o file. And in order to generate the file, you have to look at the entry for main.o here. This target build/main.o depends on the file main.cpp existing. And in order to generate build/main.o, we use g++-c, so we don't link, we just generate the object file main.cpp, and I put a -o so it can generate under the build directory, build/main.o. Same thing for game.o. Build/game.o depends on the game.cpp file existing, and the command to build to create the file build/game.o is g++-c game.cpp-o build/game.o. And with those prerequisites met and their generation already complete, it will go ahead and finally execute the command in line 2 that will generate the executable build/labyrinth g++-o build/labyrinth. Depends, we need build/main.o and build/game.o, those object files, and then don't forget to link with the -l/sdl2, and that would generate build/labyrinth that we can execute in the command line with /build/labyrinth. With that, we reach the end of this lesson. Thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next one.